Welcome to another edition of Great Companies, Great Leaders. We are super honored today to have with us Sharon Lechter. So honored to have you. Thank you for being here.
Delighted to be with you, Christine. Thanks for giving me this opportunity.
Absolutely. And I could not be more excited and passionate about the new book that you released earlier this year. For those of you that didn't catch our first podcast with Sharon, a little bit about Sharon. Sharon Lechter is an internationally recognized financial literacy expert, a keynote speaker, and a business mentor. And I would probably add 4 or 5 things beyond. You're so brilliant, Sharon. There's so many things that you do in our community and the world. So I would probably add more to that. But she's a 5-time New York Times bestselling author, a successful entrepreneur, philanthropist, and enjoyed a 35-year career as a licensed CPA. She has advised 2 U.S. presidents on the topic of financial literacy. Sharon co-authored the international bestseller, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, and 14 other books in the Rich Dad series. In 2008, when the economy crashed, she was asked by the Napoleon Hill Foundation to help re-energize the teachings of Napoleon Hill. Her best-selling books with the foundation include 3 Feet from Gold, Outwitting the Devil, Think and Grow Rich for Women, and Success and Something Greater. She's also featured in the movie Think and Grow Rich, The Legacy, and on the national television series World's Greatest Motivators. In 2021, Sharon's title, Exit Rich, was released to support entrepreneurs in building value and scalability in their businesses so that they can be in the position of greatest potential. Her newest title, How Money Works for Women, was released in July of this year in cooperation with Wealth Wave Media, who's a leading publisher of financial education materials in support of women taking control of their financial well-being. So honored to talk to you about this book today. Tell us a little bit about the impetus. What drove you to write this and publish this book?
Well, thank you, Christine. Yes, I wrote Think and Grow Rich for Women. It's 10 years ago, I think we released that. And it was such an incredible impact where women started realizing that even though the steps of success are the same for men and women, we approach them very differently. And as I've continued speaking to women, it just became more and more apparent how many of us put our head in the sand when it comes to money, let the husband or the spouse or the partner handle money. And we end up getting ourselves in situations that are easily prevented if we just take control of our own finances, make sure that we have our own credit. And so it continued to become a big issue. And I started realizing how much of an impact just a little knowledge can have in a positive way for women. And so one of the organizations I did a lot of speaking for is Wealth Wave, as a division of Transamerica. And they actually came to me and said, we want to do this book for women and we want to partner with you because you have such a depth of knowledge and experience and we want you. And it was just an incredible opportunity. And then when we said, how can we be the most effective? We said, instead of just talking about generalities, let's speak about women in every decade of life. So we have 10 avatars, 10 women from 19 to 86, dealing with different issues that women face during their lifetime. And some of them are, one is a woman escaping abusive marriage and trying to reestablish herself with 2 children. Another one is a mother that has a special needs child facing all of the issues that comes. One is just dealing with college debt, one starting a new business. And so each of these things are very important. We have one woman whose husband dies after many years of marriage, expecting this wonderful life, and then having to deal with the fact she has no credit. Another one has a husband that divorces her after 30 years of marriage, which totally, turns her life upside down. And so each of these issues are things that we need to think about and deal with and be prepared for by taking control of our own financial lives. And so I will tell you, this is my 28th book. And I think I'm as excited about this book as any other book I've ever done because it has real life information. It's like a guidebook to your life in the financial situations that you need to face.
Absolutely. You couldn't have said it any better because when I first looked at the book, I thought to myself, I was telling you earlier that I wish I had this book at 19. I wish I was Zoe, the character in the book, because this lays out your entire life from college forward. And no matter where you are, it gives you advice that you can use and use today. It's not just a content book. It's specifically around each season of your life and why these seasons, why it's so important in each season. And even if you're looking backwards, you have the ability to make some changes, right? And I think sometimes financial planning is a one size fits all, sometimes for women, and it's not true, right? There is no one size fits all. And so I love the way that each of these scenarios are detailed. It's such a beautiful book too, by the way. I mean, the colors, everything in it is so aesthetically pleasing. I didn't want to put it down. So in the book, it talks a little bit about 7 steps to taking control of your money. Let's talk a little bit about that. What are the 7 steps for women?
Well, certainly. So I have it open right now because it's like I want to make sure I get them in the right order. But the first one is really educating yourself, financial education, knowing that, what happens is ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance is dangerous. And so when you start educating yourself, you start feeling empowered. Just knowing one thing, learning one thing is going to make you feel more confident and able to go to the next issue. We're not teaching it in school. So this book is really a great guidebook to give you that basic financial education. And by doing that, then you learn how money works. You learn how not to just to make it, but how to keep it, how to invest it, how to have it grow. And so the second step is proper protection. Understanding the importance of insurance, understanding the importance of saving and investing, so that when you make money, it's not what you do for your paycheck that determines your financial future. It's what you do with your paycheck. And so we really go through these aspects. And then, of course, we all need an emergency fund. That's a code word you hear, but it truly is important. And certainly when we look at the pandemic, instead of those 3 months of emergency fund living expenses, I recommend 6 months, just to give you that additional cushion so that you're not caught unawares in a dramatic situation. And then understanding debt. During the pandemic, there was a dramatic decrease in the amount of outstanding credit card debt because we were at home. We weren't out spending money. But since the pandemic, credit card is the highest it's ever been. It topped $1 trillion last month in the United States alone. That is so frightening to me. And most of that's bad debt. So understanding debt, whether it's good debt or bad debt. I mean, there is good debt that helps you build wealth, but it's so important to, if you're digging yourself in a hole in bad debt, stop digging and start following the process that we share in the book that tells you how to take one step at a time to get out of debt. It's so important. And then really analyze assets. My favorite word on earth, Christine, is assets. And we're taught to exchange time for money, wages. Well, let's take those wages and buy assets, buy, build, and create income producing assets, because those assets become your employees. And if you get enough assets, you can become financially free, because you're financially free when the income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. And that's about cash flow, multiple streams of income. And that's how you build wealth, which is number 6, building wealth that provides you a foundation of security on the way to a foundation of financial freedom. And again, that's when your income from your assets exceeds your monthly expenses. You don't have to quit your job, but you could if you wanted to. And then understanding that once you've built it, you want it to become generational wealth. And that's providing your legacy, creating your estate plan, your wills, to make sure that you can preserve your wealth for generations to come. So those are the 7 steps to providing yourself with a journey from lack of knowledge to getting the knowledge to getting generational wealth.
And no matter your age, let's talk about that for a minute, because you have, all the different examples, but no matter your age, you can use these 7 steps, correct?
That's right. It's never too late. You're never too old. And, the issue is if you haven't started, it's time. Today, there's no better time than today to start taking control over your financial life.
And when I read this book, it doesn't say go call Charles Schwab or a financial planner. I can do this, right? I can take care of my debt. I can take care of saving. And I'm thinking, I'm thinking about the pandemic, which I never know if we're still in it or we're not, but people now I know are struggling. There is a lot of credit card debt. But again, when I read through this, it really doesn't matter where you're at, how much debt you have, how much savings you have. You really can start anywhere.
And it's also important, um, I definitely believe that you should have advisors that help you through this, particularly if you're in high distress. But as an industry, financial planners have typically been male, and they typically ignore the women at the table. And so we're seeing more and more. The company that I partnered with is WealthWave, and they have more female financial planners than they do male. And it's really, they're taking on the mission to make sure they are there to support women in their financial journey. But it's important to be in charge of your own finances. And this book gives you a platform. And it is not a marketing tool for WealthWave. It is a marketing tool for you, for yourself, for your own personal financial stability. And it has such incredible, I'm so proud of that, because it is non-threatening. A dear friend of mine sent it to her 30-year-old daughter, and the response was, she said, "Oh, it's so easy to read, and
So
I'm always
easy.
intimidated about money." So that was the greatest compliment I could get.
It is so easy to understand, Sharon. It really, really is. There's no reason that if you have questions about your finances as a woman, you shouldn't be reading this. But you gave me the perfect entryway to my next question, which is about the differences between men and women and how men and women view money and why there's such a disparity in terms of the knowledge that men have versus women have in this area. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, historically, women did not have the ability to get their own credit. They didn't, they couldn't get their own credit cards. So everything was revolving around the male of the household, the man of the household. And so women tended to just defer and to give up the control of their money. And that's the subtitle of this book, Take Control or Lose It. All right. And it's very important for women to understand that you can be married for 30 years. And if everything's in your husband's name and he dies or he decides to divorce you, you're left with nothing. You have no credit, you have no standing. And so you have to start focusing on your own credit, because your credit rating is not the same as your husband's. They're unique. And so it's important for you to establish your credit early on and understand that. But the biggest issue is on top of that, we still talk about the wage gap, right? There's 82 cents. Women make 82 cents to every dollar for men. But you still have the same ability to build wealth. You still have the same ability to focus on building, buying, and creating assets. A lot of women leave the workforce and become entrepreneurs because they get frustrated at the lack of control of their life, lack of control of their time. But even if you are an employee, you have the ability to build wealth. But the realities are, the good news is we tend to outlive our husbands by 7 years. The bad news is we tend to outlive our husbands by 7 years, and we haven't prepared to be in that position. 80% of men die married. 80% of women die single.
That is sobering.
And so that is a huge statistic we all need to be aware of. We're going to be alone. We're going to be living longer. We're going to have higher healthcare issues. So it's really imperative that we take control of our lives. And we're living longer, and the incident of divorce or being widowed causes a huge financial strain. So best to prepare for that.
I don't know what the statistic is, but someone shared with me the other day that the percentage of widows that are destitute is so high.
It's huge and increasing.
Right.
When a husband dies, a woman's financial position drops significantly. And many women over the age of 60 are living below the poverty line. It's very scary.
That's why they need your book, Sharon.
Yeah. I completely agree.
So how do you think, if we go back to COVID and the pandemic for a minute, how do you think the pandemic affected women and their finances?
Well, I think there were positives and negatives. The positives were we, tended to spend less money. We weren't going out to eat as much. And so we had the opportunity to reduce our debt. And we had the opportunity to, pay attention to where we are financially. The negative side of that is, did we take advantage of that opportunity?
Mm.
Many women didn't. They just put their head in the sand and they were sitting on the sofa watching Netflix. So, it's really, the pandemic was a huge reset in every aspect of our lives. The question is, did we take advantage of that? And only you, as watching this or listening to this, which one you were. Did you allow the pandemic to give you a fresh start? Or did you just allow it to put your life on pause? And so we can't change it. We can't go back. But now you have an opportunity to realize, we don't know what we don't know, but now you have an opportunity to learn what you don't know by reading How Money Works for Women, and gives you the opportunity. And if you didn't do it last year, you didn't do it 2 years, but don't beat yourself up about it because you can't change the past.
Right.
We're all where we are today because the choices we made before today. If you want something different in your life, you want something better, you want to be more financially secure, you simply need to start making different choices today and start educating yourself.
I think that's such an important point. Start where you're at, right? Start where you're at. One other thing I wanted to talk about for a second related to the pandemic is so many women left the workforce because of the double burden. Potentially they had elderly parents or children at home that they were taking care of on top of trying to keep things happening in their job and their career. And we know that even though it's 2023, society still views women as having the responsibility. I'm not saying everyone, because I know there are a lot of very balanced marriages.
You're right. There was a significant switch in women because of childcare issues, leaving the workforce, which created a huge and dramatic increase in entrepreneurship during the pandemic. And so, is that a good thing? I certainly hope so, because I hope it gave women the skills to, when you learn how to run a business, you learn how to run your personal business as well, your personal financial situation.
Yes, I think it's going to show us. I think history will show us it was a positive. I really do. I don't know that the impetus for them leaving and the stress, but there's always a new door that's opening, and women are incredibly smart, right? And resourceful. So I'm hoping that history will show it was positive for women.
There's also been a dramatic shift over the last 4 or 5 years, Christine. 42.8% of married women, are now the primary breadwinners. That's a huge shift in dynamics within the home. And that takes some adjustments on both sides and personalities, egos. But those 42.8% primary breadwinners, most of them are still also the primary caretakers of their children in the household. And so when you talk about a double burden, it's definitely a double burden. But we're seeing women starting to take control of their lives, a little bit more powerful, a little bit more standing in their power. And that's a good thing.
Absolutely. So last question for you before we wrap. What do you hope women will take away from this book?
I hope that a woman that reads this book is going to find one thing they can do today to make their life better tomorrow. I also know that if they put forth the effort, they can find 10 to 20 things they can do to make their life better tomorrow. And it's one of those things, one of my mantras in life is, why not? So it's when I made the decision to leave public accounting and become an entrepreneur, and it's still my mantra today. Why not do something different? Why not take that path less traveled? Why not get this resource that can make your financial life happier? 87% of Americans are stressed out about money. So is that you? If it is, get the book, because it's inexpensive, but it's worth millions.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on this podcast today. And I'm hoping that people listening take away so many nuggets that you shared. I do want to put out there for women that are in Arizona, Sharon will be a keynote speaker at our Women's Leadership Conference on October 13th. And she's going to talk more about the book. We'll have books available, but would love for you to join us. And the link will be in the comments section below. Sharon, if they want to find you or they want to find the book, where could they do that?
Well, absolutely. Well, you can get the book on Amazon, but if you do it through my website, SharonLechter.com, I will autograph it and personalize it for you. So go to SharonLechter.com under the store, under books, How Money Works for Women. And then please follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. Come to my website for more information about my programs, my mentoring. I'm just, I truly look forward to speaking to your group.
Awesome. Such a pleasure to have you always. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christine. Thanks for doing this. It's a huge value to people.
Absolutely.
Brightworks Consulting hosts this podcast and YouTube channel to spotlight the leadership around the world that is changing lives. Brightworks offers a myriad of consulting services in the public and private sector, to include diversity, equity, and inclusion solutions for any size company. You can find us at www.brightworksconsulting.com. We're honored to have Best Companies AZ as a presenting sponsor for this podcast. Best Companies AZ is your #1 source for regional employer branding. You can find them at www.bestcompaniesaz.com.